I've thought many times that people would joke with me and say, I'm going to Alaska. I was like, I ain't. That's the dumbest place to be, because that's where the gold is.
Yeah, it is.
That's where the minute the United States becomes so weak that people know we can be taken, they come crawling over that pole. It's Russia and China that come crawling over that pole, right?
And it's easy. I mean, I don't want to create these ideas of coup. It would be more subtle than that. It would be the acquisition of properties. I can give you an example of a place that I worked as a young kid at a ski resort. And you start to see the names change to Chinese characters and Japanese characters. And I once asked them, they said, they pretty much took over the whole resort. This was back in the 80s. We'll see it subtly like that, where you're going to start to see the transition. You mentioned Russia. I was in Russia a week ago. I was in Moscow. There are more billionaires per capita in Russia. And these guys are driving. I was driving by, my driver pointed over to a car I'd never even heard of. He says, that thing is worth about $5 million US to purchase it. I said, you've got to be kidding me. He said, yeah, you'll see 20 of them here. I said, why? Oil. He said, unlike you Americans, we use it. We harvest it.
We would be in such great shape if we did that.
And we could do it in a place that would be economically and environmentally thoughtful.
We could get out of the Middle East. We could be self-sufficient. We could help the rest of the world. Europe's going to need, and they're going to be slaves to Russia.
Yeah, they will. Or if not, they'll be slaves to China. China can work its way through Greece and on into Italy. I mean, you see the domino, the contagion from Greece to Italy, and Italy to France, and on through.
Why do you think that Russia and China are standing with Syria?
That's fascinating. And as you look at it, it's not only a consumption thing, and it's not only a political thing. There's economic levers here. Mm-hmm. That is the entry. That is a key entry point. I mean, it's right there. I mean, I was in Turkey a couple weeks back. And you're sitting there and look, what is Turkey bound? Turkey, I think, is an entry. Turkey's a very interesting place because you've not only got Iran and Iraq, and so you've got the whole borderline there. And Turkey gets very uneasy when America is calling shots, but not so uneasy when Russia does. I think that there's gateways. They become political moves, but there's gateways that are purely economic to the Middle East.
Does Greece survive this? Have you been to Greece?
No.
Would you go to Greece right now?
As a pure tourist, I would, because it's cheap and they'll do anything on barter.
Do you hear what they're saying? Yeah, I know they will.
You know, I mean, it's pathetic.
Did you hear what the New York Times is saying, that the people are holed up in their hotels because they don't want to go out on the streets because they're burning to the ground.
When I say as a tourist, I mean, you think you're always cloistered as a tourist and protected by the. It's not a place that you'd want to go per se in terms of economics. You would. Mm-hmm. It's cheap. It's barter. They'll do anything. What is it? The Acropolis they're putting out for $5,000 a night. You can rent it for a party. I mean, these things that you never touch, you can now have access to. But the concern I have is you see Europe that's looking at Greece and they're going, if we don't do something, we're going to see contagion that we can't stop. They're smart enough to know that. Germany gets that. They know that they can't let Greece go. But on the other hand, they're bleeding to keep Greece in their approach to entitlement. And we could go down a whole path of America being in the same boat of entitlement. They're bleeding because when they're saying, okay, we'll give you a leg up, Greece is going, no, we want exactly what we had. Retirement at 55, wine and cooler.
Crazy.
Can't have it. And so Europe is really fighting between, you either have to follow what your older sibling says, or we're going to walk away.
That's going to lead to the same kind of hatred and trouble that we had in...
Yeah, it could be visceral. I mean, many of the Greeks could really be angry with the rest of Europe, but folks, you know, this is your survival. This is your umbilical cord to life right now. And I don't
Do you think anybody really gets that over there?
They've been told for 20 years no. They've been told for 20 years they're entitled to this.
Right.
By the way,
we have been
as Americans.
Yeah.
Since the 1940s, we've been told we're entitled. I sat there in front of my students this last week and I said, opinion, and opinion only. Prepare for your own retirement. You may be paying into Social Security. You may actually think it. Prepare for and don't ever take a pension. Don't ever take a pension, because then it's in the hands of somebody else who may never have it. Go back to United Airlines where they lost 75% of their pensions. Prepare yourself. Most of them, there was one student who works for a pension advocacy group, but there was every one of them, 100 kids, 100 students in that class said, makes sense. I said, don't count on it. You're going to pay into it. You're not going to get it. You have to break the cycle. And this is your only chance. And we're not going to get the benefits of it, but if you have your own retirement, it's okay. Your children won't have to deal with that. I mean, you have to give them a direction, or students will simply come out with an academic understanding and a practical failure.
I sat in front of some students, probably about 50 of them, and I just said, I just want to have a conversation with you. You know, there was a big podium up there and everything else, and it was a classroom setting or a lecture setting, and I said, you know, I just want to have a conversation with you. How many people here think the United States is in trouble? No one raised their hand.
Really?
Yeah, none of them. And I said, that's an interesting thing. Can anybody explain what you think I'm even asking? And they said, oh, if we're going to collapse or if there's a, you know, and they all knew exactly what I was saying. And they said, but we're going to be fine because we always are. It's like, and it was a fascinating conversation. Fascinating.
We're deluded into believing, first of all, that entitlements are ours. We believe that it'll all work out. I told you some years ago, I sat on a chairlift with a woman from New York City. She's a doctor. It was right after the health care plan had rolled through, and she starts talking about Wall Street, and she says, you teach economics. So, yeah, I knew it was going to be a long ride. So I turned to her, and I started talking about the health care plan. I said, what do you think about this? She goes, it's the right thing. It's just the right thing. I said, okay. Morally, I kind of get, but now are you going to cut your costs? She said, no way. I'm not going to cut my costs. I'm a doctor. Well, you just said that the government's going to cut the price. Are you going to cut the cost? She said, no. I said, where's the difference? She says, the government will work it out. We have that in our country. We actually believe, and the sad commentary, Glenn, is that most politicians today with the heated up rhetoric around the election between now and November, they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear.
I know.
It's not true.
Do we, if we don't change course this election, can you imagine what's going to happen?
There's going to be unintended consequences regardless of who wins. Unintended or consequential issues. If you have a change from the current administration, you are going to have all of these Occupy Wall Street protesters and everything now blamed. It's going to be they're anti-government. Right now, they're still anti-government, but nobody's saying that. Everybody's saying it's anti-Wall Street. So if you have a change, you're going to have a shift, and you're going to see some pretty angry people who never thought that the administration could ever change. If it stays the same, you're going to have somewhat of a, yeah, we still inherited this. And at some point, I actually believe you're going to get, we're really not going to be able to fix it. But it's okay, lame duck. We've got 4 years. We'll do our best. We're not in a good spot either way. And you're going to have somewhere, somehow, you're going to have this visceral response when people realize that they have been lied to economically. From all the politicians, with maybe rare exception of moments in debates that you've seen, they have not been told the truth. They have not been told that we are 100% of our GM. We are completely up to the gills.
We're out.
And this fraudulent, rating system that says we're AAA is illusory. It's not true.
Thanks, sir.
Good to see you.
God bless. Back in a minute.